Adventures of Billy and Mandy was one of my favourite shows as a kid. I've always had a love for the supernatural and the weird.
I will not stand for this!
There's an empty chair right there.
And that is exactly what this show was. The show started in 2003 and ran until 2007 with 6 seasons. It follows Billy and Mandy and their antics in the town of Ennsville. Whilst Billy and Mandy are just normal kids, okay, that part is debatable, they are both very weird. A more accurate description would be they don't have any biological supernatural abilities. Sometimes they do gain some, but for the most part they are human children. For some reason, supernatural creatures are always drawn to them, the most notable one being the Grim Reaper, who ends up being forced to stay with the kids after losing a bet, but more on that later. These two have many insane adventures, to put it lightly. In one episode, Billy ends up stuck in the middle of a war between dwarves and elves over cookies. In the episode Here There Be Dwarves, it had a scene so gruesome we were not allowed to see it.
Battle is about to become way too exciting to show our younger viewers. Instead, I will show you this soothing image.
In reality, it was probably too expensive to animate the fight scene. They did the same thing as Scatoony in the series final.
I'm afraid we've been forced to show you this.
Who's stronger than 50 monkeys?
Cartoon Network needs to up some of these shows' budgets. Billy also accidentally adopts a giant talking spider, which is bad because Billy has arachnophobia. In the episode, The Crawling Niceness, Billy was not the only one with interesting solo adventures. Mandy entered a beauty contest and blew up the planet when she was forced to smile in the episode My Fair Mandy. There was also a crossover with Codenamed Kid Next Door, where Mandy is beating up the kids for fun and because she wanted to rule everything for some reason, in the episode Grim Adventures of the Candy. And there was also this ghost duck that followed her around making fart noises in the episode Duck.
You think you've won? You think you've humiliated me, broken me, driven me crazy?
And that duck went crazy. So clearly they live in a weird area. This show was so good that it had 2 Emmy Awards and an Annie Award. It had 2 films, Billy and Mandy's Big Bogey Adventures and Billy and Mandy's Wrath of the Spider Queen. And finally it had a spin-off movie called Underfist Halloween Bash, which follows a bunch of side characters of the show teaming up to defeat an evil army of candy from the underworld. My favourite episode of the entire show was Billy's Haunted Bike, which was borderline murdering people in the town of Ennsville who were mean to Billy in the episode The Tricycle of Terror. The bike even left threatening messages on its victims. I love that episode so much. However, Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy was not the original show. It started off as a segment of the show Grim and Evil. Grim and Evil was made up of 2 segments, one of which followed Grim Adventures with the kids, like the first time Grim met them in the episode called Meet the Reaper. That starts off with Grim very dramatically appearing in Billy's house. Billy, the idiot that he is, mistakes Grim for another supernatural being that breaks into people's houses.
It's Santa! It's Santa Claus!
Grim informs the kids he has come for Mr. Snuggles, Billy's hamster, so Mandy makes a bet to keep the hamster. Grim thinks they are just stupid kids, so he agrees to the bet. He challenges the kids to a limbo contest, but ends up losing after he is attacked by the hamster.
Kiss, kiss.
They get to keep Mr. Snuggles, and Grim is forced to be Billy and Mandy's best friend forever. But as I mentioned earlier, Billy and Mandy was only one of 2 segments on Grim and Evil. The other one was Evil con Carne, which is the actual subject of this video. The first episode of the show is called Evil con Carne, which is from the Grim and Evil, but it's the first ever episode of Evil con Carne, so I'll do it first. The episode starts with Hector con Carne threatening the government by saying he will blow up their cities. To his complete and utter shock, after threatening mass murder and destruction,
How can we stop them from kicking our butts, General Scar?
Cover our butts with our hands, sir.
the League of Nations sends some commandos to stop him and kick his butt. Concarne tries to get his body to use the Doomsday device to blow them up. Bear Boskov wants some honey. The commandos show up and start beating up everyone in sight, destroying their devices, while Boskov over here is living his best life. Does not even move a muscle when one of the army men rips Concarne off of him and chews him. I was so shocked when this happened. The army are done and they leave the place in ruin. Concarne fires poor Boskov and calls him names. Look at his sad face. He was just hungry. What was he meant to do? How is this Boskov's fault that an evil ruler does not have a evil security system? That's not Boskov's fault. Concarne orders Major Dr. Ghastly to make him a new body. She tries to convince him to reunite with Boskov.
wasting my time! I am never going to need to unicycle across a tightrope!
But Carne refuses, and here we see Boskov run off after being replaced. He is innocent, I say. Look at him on his unicycle. He's so precious. The commando come back for some reason, maybe to chew on his stomach as well, but they were unprepared for Carne's new body, and they start getting their butts handed to them this time. Carne performs the ultimate purple nurple. I again was in shock when this happened. He does end up damaging his own base while fighting the commandos, and now he's dangling on a tightrope, and only Boskov can save him with his amazing tightrope skills. He and Boskov reunite and become one. I really liked the first episode. It showcases the characters in Evil Carne so well. It shows Carne making up half-baked plans and being shocked when it turns out badly. Then he always blames Boskov for the ultimate failure of each plan. We meet Major Dr. Ghastly and General Scar, who are usually there to help Carne's plans, then fix them when they ultimately go wrong, because again, he doesn't think things through. The show was rather unique for early Cartoon Network, as we are following the villains of the show, so we as audience were never meant to root for their success, we're just meant to observe them. Some of the reviews call the show too violent, which I cannot really argue with after seeing a man's brain chewed on, but it never encouraged violence. It was just funny to watch. Both Carne and its sister show Billy and Mandy leaned into the weird. The first episode made for Evil Carne when it became its own show was gutless. The episode starts with the stomach complaining and brain being mean as per usual and telling him to get over it so that they can rule the world. Then Major Dr. Ghastly comes in and tells them they caught a virus and they have to stay in bed. They start watching the TV and they are talking about the virus on the news. They're informed the virus started in the UK. As a resident of the UK, what is this? This is much closer to the continent of Africa. It even had Madagascar. Even then, it is still the wrong shape and is missing key points of the continent of Africa. It might include parts of Southern Europe on the map, but even then, the UK is in Northern Western Europe, so it is still not on the map. I realise this is not important and this is a kids show, but it was so glaringly wrong. How hard was it to draw the UK? Back to the actual show. Even though the virus started in the UK, most people there were not affected by the virus, and that makes Carne mad, and he decides he needs to avenge his stomach. So they leave the stomach behind to attack Britain. They get all the way to the UK just before they cover Buckingham Palace, which again does not look like this. Just before they shoot all this snot, Carne backs out because he doesn't have the stomach for it. I kind of like the pun, I'm going to be honest. Then they go home and the stomach is worse than ever. Then stomach tells them he has trapped gas and he gets burped like a baby. Major Dr. Ghastly comes in with an antidote, but she has to heat it. As we all know from science class, this will not go well, and it didn't. They all got blown up. Yet another episode of them failing to take over the world, this time because of a stomachache. Their failure will be often, I am afraid. If you're ever hoping for them to succeed, you're watching the wrong show. Now I want to talk more about the key characters of the show. Firstly, we have Hector Carne, who is the main character of the entire show. He started out as a rich, attractive playboy, but after a near fatal explosion, his brain and stomach were the only things left, and they were attached to Boskov the bear. Carne's villainy is the reason he no longer has a body. We found out the source of the explosion was that Carne wanted to get rid of his foe, Quad Commander, so he decided to hire an evil scientist. And when given the option between Ghastly and this nurse, he chose the nurse, and she accidentally blew him up. But it was not an accident, it was Quad Commander. His stupidity started even before he lost his body. In the episode, bringing the face of Hector Carne. After he's been blown up, Ghastly, out of the kindness of her heart, comes back and saves his life and puts him in a jar. Major Dr. Ghastly is the mad scientist of the team. She's also played by the same woman who plays Daphne 2001. Ghastly is shown to have romantic feelings for Carne, yes, even in the glass box attached to the bear, but she actually fell for him when he had the body and just continued. She is seen as the least evil out of the three humans. Yes, I am counting Carne as a human. She just wants to invent things without restrictions.
I wish someone would look at my inventions.
And a life of villainy allows her to do so. She has no real interest in world domination like the others, as we see at the start of her employment with Carne. Ghastly is also shown to have a soft side for animals. We learn that when we see her try and convince Carne to keep Boskov even though he is not the best at his job, or we see her love for Carne's pet chihuahua, Enrique.
Enrique Jr. isn't stupid. Watch.
Next we have a General Scar, even though we don't see much of him in the 2 episodes I just spoke about. He plays a crucial role in this show and another. But in Evil Carne, he spends the whole time planning to betray Carne and rule the world himself, as seen in the episode Emotionally Scar.
Yes! All mine! All mine!
we see his dream reality. He did plan to turn Carne in for a cash reward. Whilst he is a very one-trick pony in this show, with his plans of betraying and somehow always ended up injured, he is far more well written in another show. There's also Stomach, who is the stomach on Carne before he blew up, and for some reason he can talk now. Don't know why.
The best thing to do in these situations is to listen to your gut.
I'm hungry.
And lastly, my favourite character, Boskov the bear, who is the body of Carne, who was abused and ridiculed by that lump of nerves and blood vessels. Boskov was formerly a circus bear and got stuck with the job of Carne's body. Every single episode, Carne makes it known how much he hates Boskov as his body. Yes, even after Boskov saved his life in Evil Carne, he does nothing but whine and complain. The worst of this is in the episode Ultimate Evil, where at a meeting to discuss their failures, Carne fully blames Boskov again. They force Boskov into training, which involves him watching the Powerpuff Girls for some reason. They torture him with sticks and refuse to feed him, and somehow that turns him into this. I will not comment on what the stomach looks like now. I will just move on. They call the leader of sport, which is a government organization, COD Commander is the leader of. I don't know why he's a fish. They come to fight and Boskov tears them apart. Boskov becomes so evil that he ends up beating up Carne and General Scar, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Get them, Boskov. He then gets run over by Thomas the Tank Engine cousin. I've never cheers so loud. But they do ultimately turn him back to normal. Boskov is a kind soul who does not deserve this treatment. Also, he is a bear, but I didn't expect him human levels of intelligence from the bear. Even though Evil Carne came to an end in 2004 after 2 very short seasons, technically only 1 because season 1 is just episodes compiled of grim and evil segments, General Scar became a reoccurring character on the Grim Adventures of Billy when he moved into the neighborhood of Billy in the episode Scarred for Life, which is when he leaves his wife of villainy behind because Carne went broke and tries to be a normal person, but it's not easy when you have the most annoying neighbor Billy who's always making him reconsider his life of villainy. Scar's final appearance was in the spin-off movie Under Fist Halloween Bash. The other characters were not forgotten and also made occasional cameos in their more successful sister show. There was even a crossover in 2007 called Company Hold. I mainly remember these characters from their appearance in Billy and Mandy, so at least their memories live on.
Get off! It wasn't my fault!
The reason Evil Carne ended was because the creator of the show was struggling to do both Evil Carne as well as Billy and Mandy, but he chose to continue the latter. I watched a lot of this show at once and it does get very repetitive very quickly. Whilst Billy and Mandy was way less restrictive with its plots and you never knew how the episodes were going to end, but at the end of every episode of Evil Carne, you know the villains are going to be defeated somehow. Billy and Mandy, the skies was the limits with all the possible mythology and supernatural myth that they could pull from to make a unique story. Evil Carne was always a man with his bear losing over and over. I could not imagine it lasting 6 seasons with 3 movies like Billy and Mandy, so I feel this was the right choice if one of them had to go. But I'm sad that Carne ended where it did. Even though the show finished in October of 2004, almost 20 years ago, it recently was added to Adult Swim as part of the Checkered Past, which is a programming block on the network that airs old Cartoon Network shows from the 90s and early 2000s. So the series is still finding new fans to this day. That will be all. I hope you enjoyed the video. Goodbye.